Well, before I forget, I've been needing to finish off this barn that I built back in December. Or was it last December? I can't remember. Time goes by so fast. I found the perfect picture I'm going to use that I created with an AI image of our fourth grade teacher's face, Mrs. C. If you went to Franklin between, I'd say, 91 and probably 99, 2000, if you remember her, I'm sure you remember her being good looking like the rest of us had the opportunity when we were in fourth and fifth grade with her in school. She was gorgeous back in the day. If you happen to know who I'm talking about, and the next time you run into Mrs. C or Mrs. Peterson, be sure to show her this video. Hi, Mrs. C. Long time no see. I haven't seen you in about 30 years. Exactly, over 30, because I was probably 10 or 11 there, and now I'm in my 40s. Hard to believe. When I said that to Mr. Magnuson, that I'll be 40 when he was at my grandpa's funeral a few years ago, when I told him, I'll be 40 this summer, he shook his head in disbelief like he couldn't believe that. Good old Bill, he's still around. So, anyway, I'll show you here in a bit, what my barn could look like, because there's a lot crappier barns than this one out in the country, and believe me, I've seen them. So, I guess you could say my barn could be a lot worse, and I'll show you what I mean after I'm done with this one. Right now I cut up the small floorboard pieces that I inherited from a dumpster, cut down from the lumber yard, and I took my box cutter and I cut them. Luckily I didn't cut my finger this time like I did that, back in February on a farm toy. So, I don't have that to worry about. Thank God. And first we need to center this thing so it's not all, crooked or anything. Yeah, hard to believe I was in fourth grade once, back in 91, 92, finished in 93, 92, 93. Oh, good old Franklin. Speaking of which, I've been writing to Mrs. Reeves as of late. She told me about the time when Jamie Nelson brought his hunting knives to school. She was awful worried about that. I don't even remember that, honestly. Good thing I got new drill bits and a good charged battery. The worst is always sweeping up the stupid sawdust. Every so often I run into classmates, not every day, but every so often, every once in a blue moon, it's always fun seeing your old classmates that you haven't seen in 20 years or more. Speaking of Franklin, if it wasn't for all my school teachers and classmates ever since, I don't know, first grade or second grade, I wouldn't be on YouTube today. If it wasn't for all my classmates and school teachers encouraging me when I was at a young age. Teachers like Mrs. C and Bach and Magnuson. Those three were the culprits. How many times did they send me to the principal's office? Hardly ever. I'll never forget my first day of school, looking at a friend of mine in fifth grade at lunch Mrs. Frankie did not like that. She did not approve of it. So we got into a shoving match, like wrestlers test of strength, like back and forth like this. We kind of got into that. Threw me in the principal's office, and I lost my shoe on the way, so she had to come back and bring me my shoe that fell off. See, I remember all that stuff. Barely. Sometimes it kind of gives me nightmares thinking about it. But what can you do? Learn to deal with it, I guess. Too bad I wasn't, rather than being in grade school, I wish I would have been on movie sets like Double Impact and See No Evil, Hear No Evil, meet those women. I had to go to grade school and learn about all kinds of useless stuff. And I mean that too. Useless. Because the only thing that ever helped me was keyboarding class in my sophomore year. That's allowed me to be able to use a computer in the first place. So that was the only class I really got, really got good experience from. That and shop class using power tools. Other than that, history, math, percentages, when it comes to math and geographic formations and stuff like that, who gives a crap? I never did. Hell, I don't even remember, back at school, I don't even remember them teaching us about how we get our food made from all the corn and the soybeans that grow around here. I said I must have been absent on those days. I don't remember that. There's a lot of things I don't even remember and barely remember about grade school. I remember one time in Mrs. C's class, someone cut one, said, "Excuse me," she threw him right out of the classroom. "Get out of my classroom!" right after he lit it off. Yeah, she did not approve of that at all. I remember that. It's kind of funny. And someone later on sat in that chair and said, Boy, this chair feels awfully warm." All the things we used to do and say back in grade school. And now we're in our 40s, going on 50. You remember back in grade school when you always thought you were the one being picked on? Like when we would line up after recess to get back in the class, a teacher pulled me out of the line and, "Dan, how'd you get all muddy?" I'm like, I don't know. "Well, excuse me for getting muddy." Yep. That was like Mr. Bach or Mr. Magnuson pulling me out of the line. It's like, what difference does it make to you? Back then it's like, we're just kids. You don't have to, we're not adults back then, Just let us be kids. Just think if things that exist today existed back then. Hell, who knows? We could have had a whole course on transgender, whether or not, if we were comfortable being a man or a woman. We could always have a change, We could have had a course on that. Luckily we didn't. I don't know how I would have felt about it. I would have said, I would have just thought, I like being a man. Back then, you never think about those things because they didn't even exist. I wish YouTube and cell phone and handy cams existed back then. I could have gotten all kinds of great footage from grade school to put on YouTube with Mrs. C and all my other school teachers. We're just about done. 2 more. And then, like I said, I'll show you some crappy looking barns that are out in the country that are falling over. It's like, gee, mine could look a lot like that, but it doesn't. Thank God. One more. That's it. Mrs. C is now on my barn to stay. Figured, you know, this takes me back to my childhood days when I used to play with toys. I figured, you know, as good looking as she was, she'd be the perfect person to put on this. As you can see, she looks great. I think it's a little bit much, but you get the gist of it. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in a bit. I was surprised how big this thing turned out. And when I bought this thing at the Lamar's toy store back in January, when I put it in there, I thought it's a good thing I made it that big, because I didn't realize that they made tractors this freaking huge. I am not going to take a hammer to this one. If I did, it'll be like taking a lighter to a $100 bill, because I paid $150 for this. They're not cheap anymore. They're expensive. They're collectibles. Let's see, I still got the price tag right here on it. See, not cheap. Now, unlike some barns, I can just move this thing right on in here. Speaking of toy tractors, I remember Ben in 8th grade telling those farm kids, Schwartz, Nias, Burke, go home and play with your tractors. I remember Ben saying that to them. Yep, I can just back this thing in or the other way. Unlike some bars we'll look at tomorrow out in the country. As you can see, mine doesn't look like this one. As you can see, this one tipped over. As you can see, this one is in worse shape too. Here's the last one. Yep, mine is a lot straighter than that. That one is slowly tipped over, and it's slowly tipping over. There. And this is what we used to do. You know, took a hammer to these things, and you know, so our G.I. Joe toys would fit in them. I like this one a lot better now that it's a convertible. I didn't really care for the white cab on it. You know, it was red and white. It was kind of ugly looking, but I think this one has more character now. It just needs a replacement smokestack, but other than that, it's pretty badass, you know, considering how old it is. And it still dries good. Doesn't have this back sticker on it, but and then just throw it on in there. There we go. There we go. Now they're both in there, like a farm shed. And it's like looking at a barn on the farm. You got your tractors in there. So, thanks for watching. If you like, give me a thumbs up. We'll see you again later.